Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. It's finally the second hour of the show and it's time for our riveting discussion. But before we go into it, let's just take a look at what we'll be talking about with my guest in studio. It all emanates from the Parliamentary Scorecard 2024 that has been done by Mzalendo Trust, a Kenyan parliamentary monitoring organization that in one or the other has raised concerns about the level of Parliament's responsiveness to issues relating to public interest. They've broken down concerns per the region, the concerns that are closest to the hearts of Kenyans, and equally members of Parliament who have been vocal in Parliament, what they've been talking about, and those who haven't been vocal at all. They've equally broken down the voting patterns of this particular legislators in the National Assembly. So let's take a look at some of the graphics in regards to that particular report that has recently been released, where majority of people in the country believe the country is headed in the wrong direction, approximately 63%. And you can see, as per the region, Nairobi topping with 74% of its residents highlighting their concerns that the country is heading in the wrong direction, with 63% of people in Central Region equally voicing their concerns. On to the next board that highlights some of the concerns that have been raised by Kenyans. 49% are worried about the high cost of living, 30% about the high unemployment rates in the country, and equally 13% are worried about corruption and the quality of education. That's one of the issues we'll be asking our guest in studio. How come so little people are worried about corruption and accountability, yet it's usually our main cause of discourse on online platforms? Let's take a look at the other statistics released. There you have it, the population trends, where 50% of men, 47% of women, and 50% of youth are worried about the high cost of living in the country. So just looking at the statistics, less women are worried about the high cost of living in the country and the high rate of unemployment compared to men and youth who lie in between the age bracket of 18 to 26 years of age. The most vocal MPs, something that might catch your attention as you try find out how your member of parliament has performed on the floor of the House in the National Assembly. These are the most vocal MPs, the top 5 who make the list: Wilberforce Oundo Ojiambo, Beatrice Elachi, James Nyikal, Makali Mulu, and Adan Welie, with the number of contributions actually indicated right there. They're equally the most vocal female members of parliament, if you could take a look at that. And there you have it, the most vocal members of parliament who are female: Beatrice Elachi, Zamza Mohammed from Mombasa County, Catherine Omanyo from Busia County, Dorothy Ikiara, who's a nominated member of parliament, and Jane Njeri from Kirinyaga County top the list as the most vocal members of parliament in terms of their contributions on the floor of the House. Members of parliament who have not spoken since the year 2024 started on the floor of the House: Oscar Sudi tops the list, 0 contributions; George Aladwa, 0 contributions, including Clement Sloya of Sabatia constituency, Irene Njoki of Bahati, and Irene Kasalu of Kitui County, who have not made any contributions on the floor of the House in this particular year. So that's the background of this conversation we're set to have with Gitungo Wamere, who's joining me in studio. He's the program coordinator at Mzalendo Trust, the organization that conducted that particular survey and released the report quite recently. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Gitungo. Sorry for the long wait. Asante for your time.
It's no problem. Thank you so much, Jesse, for having me.
Okay.
And having this very important conversation at this particular time.
Straight to it. Is Parliament responsive to the issues relating to public interest? And which notable voting patterns didn't represent wishes of citizens in the year 2024?
For that question, I would say an authoritative no, there is a mismatch in terms of what Parliament is doing and what the people interests are and needs. And it's no surprise that in June 25 you saw the people storming into Parliament. But before we go into these details, I would like to give a context into this scorecard.
Sure.
In fact, this year, 2024, it's the 10th year of this parliamentary scorecard. The first one was released in 2014, assessing the performance of the first parliament, post-2010 constitution era parliament. Yeah. And this particular scorecard, the very key objectives of this scorecard is to ensure or to enhance transparency, accountability, and openness of Parliament. The second one is to encourage or conduct civic education among people, making them understand the role of Parliament. We may assume, we may take it for granted that people know what Parliament is supposed to do or parliamentarians are supposed to do, but that is not the case. Also, surprisingly, we may think that parliamentarians, all of them, know their role, but according to the scorecard, seeing that quite a number of them have not spoken, some of them for 12 years, is quite shocking that some of them may not know what they're supposed to be doing in Parliament.
Just to jump in before you continue, because that issue is quite critical, and I'm sure Kenyans will be talking about those members of Parliament who haven't contributed on the floor of the House. The narrative by those parliamentarians would be that, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm still doing my job qua ground. I am building the necessary infrastructure, bringing development to my constituency. Hence the reason why I don't need to speak at the floor of the House. How important are contributions on the floor of the House in regards to their three roles, oversight, legislation, and the other one? Yeah.
If I could have a conversation with constituents who say that, I would ask them what ground, what implementation, and that notion needs to be debunked. Because if we look, and I'm so sure you're talking about NGCDF, if you look at NGCDF as a percentage of the budget that we have in the country, it's a mere less than 2% of what is usually shared. If you elect an MP to concentrate on a mere 2%, we'll take care of the 98% that they're supposed to oversight. Again, go look into the audit reports of NGCDF of those particular MPs who claim they are not in Parliament because they are implementing projects on the ground. Not a single MP. Look at those audit reports. Not a single MP has ever received an unqualified report from the Auditor General. Unqualified report means that NGCDF, whatever money you are given, you have implemented it as per what you had suggested, or there is no corruption, there is no issue, the Auditor General has given you a clean bill of health. But over 221 MPs have issues with their NGCDF. But again, as I speak this issue, I would say the most recent audited reports of NGCDF are 2020, 2021. So we don't have the other ones coming forward. So if you look at those reports, issues will be raised. Money has been mismanaged. Over 15 constituencies have received adverse reports. That means rampant theft of public fund. And as you are speaking here, you raised an issue of why is corruption among the issues that
was my next question,
Kenyans are concerned less about.
Yes.
When I came here, I told you I'm in a meeting. Today is International Anti-Corruption Day. I was attending National Integrity Awards by Transparency International, and these issues were spoken about. I think Kenyans, when you speak about corruption, they don't really understand what you're talking about. It is this abstract issue that is up there. But I think we need to start calling these people thieves, or saying, instead of saying corruption, speak about theft. Because as you have seen, some of the issues that Kenyans are concerned of are cost of living, high cost of living, poor infrastructure. I think they need to be told corruption has a direct relationship with some of these problems that they are facing.
Indeed.
If you speak about the high taxes that we are paying right now, if you speak about mismanagement of our revenue, if you speak about high public debt, some debt that cannot be even be accounted for, corruption is the lead issue of our misfortunes as a country, and I think it needs to be called as it is. And if you look even at the scorecard that we have released, there are some of the bills that we have highlighted that were proposed by members of parliament that upsets the constitution of Kenya, especially chapter 6 of the constitution that is on ethics and integrity. So when we speak about mismatch of issues, mismatch of what MPs are doing and the interests, the needs of the people, it's so real.
Okay, and it's proper to note that you highlighted why corruption perhaps is coming down on the bottom of the list. More sensitization needs to happen to make sure Kenyans understand the far-reaching consequences of theft of public funds and mismanagement and whatnot. But equally, we need to hold leaders to account, especially the head of state who mentioned just after the Gen Z protest that they'll be trying to fast-track or introducing legislation pieces to fast-track how corruption cases are handled in the corridors of justice. I'm still curious about which notable voting patterns didn't represent the wishes of the citizens in this particular year.
I will go to some of the votes that were done on roll call, those that we can really highlight who has voted yes, who has voted no. Because most of the times voting in parliament is done through acclamation. You cannot really tell who has voted for what or who has said no. And also, as I speak about voting patterns, it's also an issue, an advocacy issue for us as Mzalendo. We may need to advocate for when there is an issue of public interest that is being voted for in parliament, make sure that voting is made public, make sure it is voted through roll call or through the machines that are in parliament. So voting by roll call, there were, I think, over 3 issues that were voted by roll call, and we have highlighted how certain members, all members of parliament voted for. There is an issue of finance bill, there is an issue of impeachment of former CS of agriculture, and there is an issue of,
regarding impeachment.
Regarding impeachment and affordable housing bill. So if you look at how MPs voted for those some of those particular issues. Let me pick some of the issues that are very of high political voltage, like impeachment of former deputy president and the voting of finance bill. You may remember that people, MPs, were even chest thumping in the streets saying, whatever you say, street iPhone carrying young people, whatever you say, you don't even understand about finance bill, we still vote yes. So you will find out some of the MPs that we have highlighted here have not spoken even for the last 12 years, have not spoken since they were elected. On that particular day, on that high voltage political issue, they were in parliament to vote, but to vote for who? Not to vote for Mwananchi, but to vote for the interest of their political party. And also, in this country, for sure, you know, we don't have political parties, we have entities that are owned by individuals. So if the person owning the political party has commanded you to vote in a certain way, they will appear in parliament and vote in accordance to the wishes of their party leader. So you will find them most of the times when the public are saying no, like in the finance bill, they are voting yes. On an issue that doesn't really matter to the public, but to the powers that be, like the impeachment of former deputy president, they will come in and vote stay even late hours. And there are some sections of this report that you will find out almost a quarter or slightly over a quarter of the sessions have faced quorum hitches. Members of parliament did not turn up, especially sometimes even discussing very important issues affecting Kenya, like cost of fuel, such issues that are key to the Kenyan people. So some of them did not really turn up. The report highlights some of those issues and mentions how each and every MP voted for us.
Thanks for breaking it down, at least in general. Let's talk about public participation, which is definitely a point of contention between members of parliament and Wananchi if the last few sentiments shared by MPs is anything to go by. We just had from the minority leader in parliament who was questioning the role of public participation, because according to him, it seems to be more of a blockade in terms of government policies and agendas. That we have to ask NGOs, we have to ask, go to courts, you know. So it was said in a political gathering, and perhaps the importance of public participation was watered down. But what exactly does this report say about public participation?
Yeah, exactly. And as you have said, I think as Kenyans we need to call out some of these, some of the disdain by some of these leaders, their arrogance, because public participation is at the key of our constitution. It's in Article 10 of our constitution as one of our national value. And Parliament, since 2013, now the 11th Parliament, the 12th Parliament, and now the 13th Parliament, have tried to come up with a law to ensure that public participation in this country is made meaningful. But at this particular moment, as we speak, there is a glaring gap on a national legal framework to govern how public participation is conducted in this country. And that's why you have people going to court because they were not involved when a law was being made. In fact, the institution that has helped us in setting the jurisprudence in terms of public participation, it is the courts, because there are quite a number of rulings that have been made by our courts and they have pronounced themselves on how public participation should be conducted. But when it comes to Parliament, they have really dragged their feet in terms of implementing or enacting or legislating a law on public participation. So at this particular moment, we don't have one. There was one in 11th Parliament that was introduced. It never matured. It never became a law. In the 12th Parliament, went through the legislative process. I think the tenure of the 12th Parliament ended without it becoming a law. So this particular moment, the 13th Parliament has introduced a law which I think public participation on that law was done in November 2023, but up to this moment it has stuck in the second reading stage. So in terms of political willingness, you see it's missing. But again, I think in September, October this year, the Attorney General has initiated a law on public participation, which public participation at that level has been conducted and finished. So we are waiting for it to be introduced in Parliament. Hopefully, at least maybe we will, this Parliament will give us a public participation law, but those are kind of laws that need a lot of political will, because it's about involving the people, it's about having the views of the people. So if you look at our report on how the scorecard that we have given in terms of people involvement in public participation, there is a key issue in terms of giving people time. Like a meaningful public participation must be between 14 to 21 days. Meaningful public participation, there must be feedback when you participate. There must be feedback. Also, people must feel that they are being listened to. But if you look at this scorecard, it says there has been an average of 12 days. We call for public participation, give people 12 days. There are some laws that have gone for as little as 3 days. Some of them, like the impeachment, the motion on the impeachment of Deputy President was not given enough time. But on that, at least they tried to in terms for optics, I think, to show that they have gone in all the constituencies. But it's in terms of public participation, in terms of involvement of the people, in terms of considering what people have said, it's an issue that has not been considered by our Parliament.
And do Kenyans truly feel that public participation at times is a PR exercise? According to the views you collected from Kenyans in various parts of the country, many or most people on social media might argue that at the end of the day, you might give or bombard emails on certain legislative pieces that need public participation, but at the end of the day, they're not taken into consideration. Is this a view that's generally held by Kenyans?
Well, it is, and it's based on evidence. They are not just saying it without evidence. For instance, if you look at the Finance Bill 2013, a lot of Kenyans came out and gave their opinion, their input. And for the first time, the Committee on Finance and Planning gave us a feedback on what Kenyans said. But if you looked, assessed the feedback that the Finance and Planning Committee gave in 2023, majority of the proposals that were given by the people were not considered. So the law was passed as they wanted, not as per the people's wants.
Yeah.
I think in 2024, despite the outcry, the outroar, they tried. They gave feedback, and sometimes, at some point, they took some of the input that was given by the people. There are other laws, many laws that usually go through Parliament, whereby even us as an institution go to Parliament and give our input, give our proposal, but the committees are never courteous enough to tell you that, yes, you came, give us your opinion, and this is what we took, this is what we did not, and these are the reasons as to why we did not take your opinion. I think our democracy has to be sophisticated to the level that we go to that point whereby we are not, public participation is not just for optics. It is not just for consultation purposes. It is public participation that is meaningful, that is meant to make sure that people, citizens, influence policy and legislations.
Quite so, quite so. It should be meaningful public participation, as you've mentioned. Allow us to take a short commercial break. We'll come back with the discussion as we continue evaluating the Parliamentary Scorecard 2024. In studio, I'm joined by Gitungo Wamere. He's the program coordinator at Mzalendo Trust, the organization that was responsible of reviewing and releasing this report on the Parliamentary Scorecard. We take that short break. We'll be back in a few. Stay with us.